Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 10:10. We're waiting on a couple folks, and we expect them to walk in the door in the next 10 minutes, so hopefully that'll fill the table up here. So welcome, public. So just a quick reference, I missed the last meeting, and I think so did Eric. So I was told that there wasn't a lot of decisions being made during that meeting, just more discussion and moving forward. First, want to welcome Matt down here, who is filling in for Kate from the Yurok tribe today. So thank you, Matt. Matt's got to step out in about 20 minutes for a call, so we'll lose him for a bit. And if someone wants to start with just a quick conversation about the last meeting in regards to what was talked about, or a quick summary, that would be appreciated.
Okay, so we were talking about potentially with cultivation rezoning TPZ properties, as TPZ is relatively tax, has a very little tax to the property, so the county would like to see a rezoning. There's some current concerns that the rezoning might be too many hurdles for a cultivator to go through. Is my understanding the rezoning has to be
There's two different types of TPZ rezoning, but the one that would probably be most desirable for someone who is planning on doing cultivation sooner than later would be an immediate TPZ rezone, which requires receiving approval from the County Board of Supervisors as well as the State Board of Forestry. And it can be a lengthy process.
Okay, and then let's see, I believe Kate had brought up a concern of maybe wanting to see a watershed analysis for outdoor cultivation. I think looks like we're leaning towards for now not seeing on agricultural lands is what we get some direction from Supervisor Cowan yesterday, that she really didn't want to see it there. I think maybe we were coming to maybe indoor cultivation was a little bit of a different thing, and maybe there'd be some wiggle room for an indoor cultivator to get into. You know, it would be a separate subject. Let's see.
Yeah, and I think that the thought with that would be primarily for nurseries, which I believe Jesse Davis described during the meeting that they may not necessarily have the odor impacts and those types of things that the full-grown plants would have.
Okay. So we're thinking, I guess, non-flowering operations maybe might be something that would be appropriate on agricultural lands where we're concerned that the smell might violate residential abutments and whatnot. As far as other than that, I think it's kind of a rehash. I think we've pretty much got manufacturing settled, except for maybe the specifics of the zoning, I think is where we were at.
Yes, I think we're kind of, I know there's an internal meeting that's going to be with planning staff and Joel, where he's going to bring forward, the ideas that have come out of the working group to planning, and for planning staff to kind of go back and forth on that. I think that we were primarily looking at the M zone manufacturing and the C4, which is the heaviest of our commercial zone designations, as being the two primary locations where that may be considered.
Yeah, I was just going to weigh in. I spoke with Heidi a little bit about this. So 2 meetings ago, we'd asked Joel to basically work on a write-up, and he is generally working on that in-house. He's not here today. Heidi will be keeping some notes and updating him, and we would expect to see something soon, hopefully at our next meeting, in writing that can then come to us and go to the Board of Supervisors. Where we left off in that, this is just from my notes, you know, I've got some things, we talked about limiting the size, and then we said no to that, so that's kind of off. We talked about combining districts, and that was a check yes on that. And that's hopefully going to be part of what we see. And moving on. So right now, Eric just snuck in. Welcome, Eric. We're still waiting on JD. We know that Kurt's not going to be here today, and we have Matt on the end. So, Eric, we were just really doing a quick summary of the last meeting, and kind of ready to move on to our agenda, which item number 1 is the manufacturing and processing. We think that most of that has been handled, a little bit more on zoning. And here comes JD. Welcome. So, JD, we're just about to kind of finish up here on item number 1, which is manufacturing and processing, and we really haven't discussed anything. This seat's available. In terms of decisions or anything, and just wondering if there was any input from you. In regards to, you know, an update or where we're at. Joel's not here. He will be
I'll put that back.
Informed about what we do today by Heidi, and hopefully we'll get his write-up soon. Cool, we're complete now. Yeah, big crowd. We've already welcomed the public.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't fully paying attention to that. Was there a specific question there you had for me?
Nothing
Okay.
specific. Is there anything you want to weigh in with in regards to just the general manufacturing and processing / zoning?
Yeah, we seemed like we sort of wrapped up. You know, Joel feels comfortable that we discussed the manufacturing enough, but you weren't here and Eric wasn't here. I don't know that we really got into anything brand new. We were talking about scale limiting or size limiting potentially. I remember maybe when you were here last, and then we talked about maybe not needing that because of maybe there not being concerns of scale being an issue with operations that are not open to the public. That was an idea there. So. But other than that, nothing to kick it off with from me.
Okay. All right. If there's no other comments in regards to item number 1, we'll move on to item number 2, which is cultivation. Really opening it up to y'all.
I know that Joel had talked about wanting to spend some time figuring out how to structure the conversation. And we didn't talk much about that the last meeting, but I was hoping he'd be here to help talk about his ideas with that, because there's a lot of different layers to it. And so at the last meeting, I think you suggested breaking down the cultivation, at least indoor, outdoor, as separate projects. And then there was another category there. I think he was talking about breaking it down, but I think maybe we could start with just how we might structure the conversation of cultivation rather than just randomly jumping into, which we did a little bit already.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that looks like exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good idea to kind of break it up into indoor and outdoor stuff. I mean, I would throw out there that, if we were going to start piecemealing that kind of thing, we should start somewhere in the outdoor spaces.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be the most viable immediate thing. Anybody indoor is going to have to do
Sure.
a lot of different infrastructure work. Not that outdoor isn't going to require that too, but.
And then mixed light, I think maybe that was something, since it's a separate license category, the idea of using lights or not, if you should be on the grid or not, things like that.
So mixed light would be a third category, or does that come under indoor?
It is a third.
It's more of an outdoor category, but
Okay.
it's a different license
All right.
category than outdoor without using supplemental lighting.
Okay.
So I'm not.
All right. So I've written down three areas under cultivation. In this order, we would talk about them: outdoor, indoor and then mixed lighting? Or do you want mixed light in between?
Sure.
Might as well just keep the mixed light and the outdoor kind of.
Right,
Together.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so we'll all
Because
right.
mixed light's going to be like
Yeah.
greenhouse stuff, supplemental light.
Yeah.
Okay, so outdoor, mixed lighting, and then indoor.
It's probably okay if we
That's
jump
the-
around a little bit as the categories are relevant to each other. We don't have to go in order per se.
Right,
Um,
so
And then
let's,
Eric, do you know if CDFA, if they've weighed in recently, if artificial darkness is the same as artificial light? There's some conversation about that just.
I don't think they have yet.
Okay,
I
so
think they're still
just-
discussing that.
So just covering would be
Yeah.
considered outdoor and not
I
a
would
mixed light
believe
category?
so.
Because there's no
Because
wattage
there's no
threshold.
supplemental lighting, so if
Right.
you would be covering currently, like right now, you
Right.
would be basically just an outdoor grow.
Okay.
I mean, I guess when we get into that, we'd have to start considering what a structure would be. You know, some of these hoop houses that may extend past 120 square feet.
Sure.
You know, those are the kind of the things I think we'll have to start talking about when we get into,
Mm-hmm.
you know, greenhouse structures and stuff like that for just specific
Definitely.
photosensitive stuff, you know.
Yeah, in terms of license category, though, we can just treat it as outdoor. All right.
Do we want to tackle the idea of non-flowering as far as like a nursery operation?
Yeah,
having a-
separate license category, nursery operations.
so that would be 4 after indoor. All right, going back to my notes from July 13th, we addressed outdoor at that point. I wrote down 3 points. A setback, this is generally in terms of direction for us today. Ag zone land, yea or nay, or how, and then the size and scale. So those were the 3 ways to maybe break down this conversation. Is there another added look at that? If we could just start with setbacks, and then we'll go to the ag zone, and then the
I think those
size and scale?
Those are probably the 3 most pertinent
Okay.
things to start with.
All right.
Being zoning probably and setbacks being the biggest deal to kind of weigh in on.
Okay. So again, Matt, welcome. Just jump in if you have an opinion on any of this. We're working by consensus. We're not going through motions, and we're just going to bring up the subject and try to talk it through and get to a point where we all say, okay, I can live with that.
Great, thanks. I imagine I'm going to be just getting a lay of the land kind of for the
Okay.
most part. But if there's any opinions or thoughts from the Humboldt County process that I'm familiar with, that
Are you
I'll chime in.
replacing Kate?
Not necessarily replacing her. She just had she had a meeting
Awesome.
today, and I told her I'd sit in, and then
Right on.
that way at least I can update her and take good notes and then provide some comments. I am going to have to leave for just hopefully 10 minutes in a little bit for a phone call, but other than that, I'll be here.
Cool.
Thanks for being here, though.
Yeah.
You have some experience with the Humboldt County process and.
Yeah, I've been with
cannabis
Kate for a
ordinances.
while
Okay,
doing that
super.
and sitting down in the meetings, and so
Super,
yeah,
excellent.
it's definitely helpful because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, a lot to learn, maybe a lot to avoid too, right? I grew up in Humboldt, so, I have a pretty strong opinion of what I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyhow, you've got, just 5-6 minutes before your call. If you want to get your points on the table, you're welcome to, or even enlighten us with anything that,
Not necessarily. I mean, addressing Kate's watershed analysis, that's definitely something we have continually voiced to Humboldt County in terms of making sure that if you're going to have some sort of agricultural product outside of the ag land, to make sure that it isn't draining fish. Because a lot of the ag land is at the bottom of the watersheds, right? So there's more available water, it's flatter. Well, if you're in possibly a timber harvest land, it's going to be less available water. And I believe someone mentioned something about a well drying up from trying to review the notes from the last meeting, but it's just an area of concern, and I think it can possibly prevent future litigation by people too if you've done the full process and investigative work. So, but I don't know. We'll talk about that when it comes to it, because that's the only thing for now.
okay. Yeah, I would add, under the context of a well drying up, I would add creeks and rivers also drying up. So,
Yeah, that being more the concern, and obviously in the TPC
Yeah.
zones.
okay, so setbacks. What are our thoughts on setbacks in regards to outdoor grows?
Remember when we talked about it last, Joel suggested that it would be some kind of more sophisticated formula than we were dealing with retail, you know, rather than just a number. There's going to be other factors, line of sight, elevation, and it was going to be a more intensive case-by-case kind of situation, unlike the personal cultivation ordinance that applied to a huge number of people, so you can't be dealing with a lot of case-by-case situations. With the cultivation, I think there was more opportunity to investigate applications on a case-by-case basis, but that was kind of as detailed as we got on it. So it wasn't going to be just a number for all, I think, was the idea, but I don't want to speak for Joel.
So are we looking for direction from Joel? Is that would be fair to say?
That'd be cool. I don't know if Heidi has any thoughts on what Joel was talking about.
Or she's passing on a note.
Yeah, I'll make a note of what you just said.
Okay, cool.
I mean, really, when you start getting down to setbacks, it really depends on the zone district, because that's going to give you an idea of what your surrounding land uses are and what you may or may not be trying to, you know, prevent conflicts from. So I think for a starting point, we might want to start examining some of the different zone districts that we may want to consider for cultivation.
Right.
And going from there.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe if we do start with just kind of throwing around some zone and stuff. Because that will give us a better idea of what our zoning and our setbacks will be in specifics.
So let me just throw out an idea, just a concept here, because I literally need to be brought up to speed, I think, in regards to this. So when we started this whole meeting group, we first started talking about zonings and setbacks in residential areas here in the city? No, not in the city, but in the county that was in towns.
Yeah, mostly for personal cultivation.
Correct. All under the personal cultivation situation. So now we're really kind of right back to square one with a commercial grow out in the county and what that might look like. And so I guess, why would we have setbacks, right? When would they apply? I guess it's on small parcels that are exposed in town or in a setting. And then when I say in town, out in the county, right, there's a lot of unincorporated cities that aren't cities. So
communities,
right. So is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, like residential zoning. Joel thought that it wouldn't be difficult to identify the residential zones. I don't know that they have to be called residential zones to be residential zones necessarily. There's a lot of, like in the big flat area, it's a lot of PO land. It's clearly residential.
Jesse, do you think there would be any benefit of bringing up those maps that we had prepared several weeks ago?
Yes, now's a good time.
just as kind of to initiate it, and you kind of, what these maps are showing are sort of in the areas that I think we've identified as being probably most likely to have successful cultivation. And the maps, I believe, show TPZ zoning and PO zoning. But in addition to that, we can talk about what's adjacent to it. I also have all of our land use maps for the county available.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think definitely, we had the church tree group who have a specific issue with, residential land buttressing to agricultural land. So I'm sure that's, those are one of those types of issues I think we're going to have to, start talking about. That's probably a good place to start is, if we've got ag land or PO zones that are, in really close proximity to some of these commercially viable ag spaces, those might be contentious areas.
And I guess there was some, I didn't see or hear it, just from people here, there was discussion at the board meeting yesterday on ag specific, so I don't know if Lori had mentioned all ag or just ag within residential area. I don't know what has been talked about at the board meeting level.
Yeah, definitely some, just the general concern that we've heard from lots of departments about not wanting to, first of all, not wanting to displace existing agricultural operations and land, and image and sight, not wanting to see quote unquote pot farms in in the lily fields. So, and I think we're on board with that. Yeah, sure. Blake. I think everybody's on board with that and figuring out, and I suggested that, let's see, Kurt isn't here.
No, he's
Kurt,
not here.
Kurt was also talking about how the discussion needs to continue about how and when and if some parts of the cultivation industry can take place on ag land where it's appropriate because of its scale.
Yeah, I remember in our last meeting that we talked about having some of it. We thought that some of the ag area is ideal for that because it's out of the area, out of the smell zone, out of,
Sure.
you know, certain criteria that's going to be brought up by residential areas or specific people.
The climate's ideal for nursery type operations, which tend to have less smell impact around them. But I just suggested that it was, it wouldn't be a problem for the working group to let go of including it in ag at all, at least in the first rounds of all of this, and just that it's a discussion that the county needs to continue to have because it's a resource. There's people who want to use it, there's people who don't, and the discussion needs to continue on it, was all.
And there was also some discussion on indoor in ag.
Yes.
Because of the fact there are some empty ag buildings and that they may be ideal locations for indoor processing or indoor planting or whatever.
Is there a difference between indoor and greenhouses?
Yes.
Yeah, because, you know, there's been a lot of indoor in Humboldt County that is just nasty. It's wrong.
Sure. Yeah, the unregulated and unpermitted type of indoor cultivation is definitely not. Yeah, if you have never seen a professional, you know, state licensed facility, it's a real eye opener. It's, you know, as professional and clean as, you know, the most,
Right.
any kind of laboratory operation.
Yeah, I saw on the news last night that they confiscated a bunch of plants in Humboldt County of a guy illegally growing, and they said that he'd be fined up to, or 10,000 to 100,000 a day until he got his stuff together.
Big stacks of code violations and fish and wildlife violations and things.
Okay.
For sure. So, but we'll be talking about probably smaller scale, and you know, we're not probably going to be looking to be permitting existing operations anywhere as they're functioning. They would be kind of brand new engineered operations that would be done under the guidance of state rules and whatever county rules if it's a thing.
Right.
And also,
So-
I remember that our largest that we talked about was 10,000 square foot.
Yeah, I
The-
think that's,
For
yeah,
ma-
for outside. For outside, that'd be a big inside.
So can we do like an option B for, present, without agriculture, present, hey, but if you did agriculture, you know, with some setbacks, you know, if we did it in agriculture, it could look like this, you know? Do you want to present like
Yeah.
an alternative for them?
It might not be a bad idea to give them a little bit of direction on the ag. Maybe we don't want to start with ag though.
Sure.
because of
But,
the
yeah.
implications of that.
Right. Yeah, I think that big setbacks from residential areas.
Yeah, I was just going to remind everyone that the church tree group, and if you weren't here, you know, there were 4 or 5 residents that came in and said that there's been a neighborhood grow that's been bothering them for a year or two. They didn't really put a timeline on it, but it's a current situation that is bothering them. And so that's what we need to keep in mind in terms of setbacks and locations and spotting these places. In terms of jumping into ag zone, I guess let's just stay off of ag zone until we get more of a feel for where we're going in general.
Sounds good.
All right.
Can have counsel here to answer any specific questions about how you might formulate a setback or whatever. Yeah.
So anything else in the context? We've got maps in front of us now
Yeah.
that we can look at if somebody wants to
Did I? use
TP
the
and
mouse?
PO.
I lost the mouse. There it is. Okay, so I go up and down, right? Okay. This is on the south side of the Smith River, I believe.
If you wanted
Fox
to
Ridge.
scroll back to page number 1.
Okay, at the top.
I mean, they are they have
Okay.
labels, so we know
Okay.
where we are, because sometimes it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to tell.
So when we looked at these maps, I looked at them in the books, and I didn't see a lot of any residential specific stuff. Not a lot of that going on.
Could we get
just
a quick, TP
Yeah.
is timber production?
Yeah, TPZ it's called now,
Yeah, and-
Timber Production Zone, and PO is called public ownership, although there's a lot of private land in the public ownership zoning, but it's mostly the park land and the federal land.
Wow, okay.
Is the PO. But that's, let's see. So the bolder lines are the private property. So if you're looking, these are like, looks like the property lines where it borders the Forest Service.
Actually, those are just the boundary of the zone designation.
Oh,
that
oh,
heavier
okay.
line.
So intermixed with that is public
Yeah.
land and
Yeah,
private
actually, that would have
land.
been a good idea to show where
Parcels.
state or federal lands are being
Right,
held.
some parcel boundaries. But they're kind of intermixed. There's private in-holdings. I know this area a little bit. There's private in-holdings that are surrounded by a national forest, and then there's clusters that are, or, groups of private property, different kinds of access. Some of it's accessed by county road, some of it's accessed by Forest Service road. This is my neighborhood here. And this is a residential area. I mean, even though there's very few permitted structures, I counted last week 37 kind of home sites altogether, ones that you can see and ones that I know about, starting from the power lines, which is the 3-mile marker, up to the 5-mile marker. And so there's quite a density there. It doesn't fit in with the wild urban interface, which is like one structure per 5 acres, I think, so it's not that dense. But it could be considered residential because there's quite a bit of residences. So I don't know how that works. The same thing like in the big flat area where there's a lot of PO.
Just for quick context of these maps, these general squares, the grids, those are 40-acre pieces, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So if you look at, like 22, if you look, the 4, that would be 1 square mile.
And these
4
are
on each side,
sections.
16.
Yeah, and these-
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So each individual square would be 40.
Okay, and then here is.
And just so you know, the underlying general plan land use designation for this entire area is timberland, which has a 20-acre minimum lot size.
Although there's a bunch of small parcels here too. There's substandard lots, I guess they're called, right? Okay. And this is south of there. So here's some private in-holdings here. And then Big Flat, which is, there's lots of residential. It's pretty dense in areas, but it's not designated that. But I think, I asked Joel about that, and he seemed to think that it wasn't difficult to be able to define it as residential. I don't know if that's true. I might be misquoting him.
Actually, some of the Big Flat area, what you're going to find is some of the areas that are zone PO are actually going to have a land use designation that may be agriculture or even
Okay.
rural residential with a 5-acre minimum.
Okay.
I believe when we did our general plan update in 2003, however, that would not be shown on the zoning map, but that would be something to keep in mind. I think
Okay.
when we're looking at PO or TPZ, we're looking where the underlying land use is also
Okay, that affects
timberland.
it. I see. And so this is up east of Big Flat.
I have a question in regards to where we allow grows. Could it be, well, TP land, of course, because that's privately held, and then the privately held part of the PO.
Mhm.
Right?
And there's some talk of
Yeah,
rezone
it's
requirement.
that simple.
It is pretty simple, actually. If you break it down,
Right.
it's fairly simple. Just to find that
I think there was talk of a rezone requirement for TPZ potentially, for a commercial, being a commercial operation. I'm not sure the plan from community development on that one.
I
but-
think from the discussions I've heard Joel say too, it's not that difficult of a process.
You can do it, it costs money, yeah, and since it'll be relatively small numbers of people doing it, it should probably just be
But that was only specific to the TV.
done on a case by case. Yeah, it sounded like there was a way to include it in the PO without
Yeah.
having to rezone it, but I don't know.
There's a lot of specified uses with the PO.
That's Heidi's project. Forest Service map. Well, there's a little handwriting on there shows the TPZ, but.
Yeah, this was an area that we didn't actually have maps for the areas outside of Gasky.
Okay.
And now I'm trying to recall what the yellow was, if it was TPZ or if it was, no, it's, the yellow is PO, and then the handwriting obviously is TPZ.
Yeah, I see, okay. So there's not a lot of it, this area, this is like our neighborhood here, so these sections here, there's private property and it's okay region. And then out here up French Hill, there's some big enough parcels and, you know, remote enough. But all in here, it doesn't seem like there's really the parcel size. And it's too residential around Gasky. Yeah. Yeah, this out by you. There's a lot of good private property out here. I mean, considering how little there is, there's quite a bit. And then this area, wait.
That's Star,
I don't,
that is Sunstar.
that this is? Okay.
Yeah, and now they're precluded from a
Wait, this is
generalized
199
homeowners
here.
association. I know a lot of people out there, and they can't grow due to just generalized community-owned properties that they have out there. It's kind of like the old communes.
And a community agreement?
That's
that
not right
says-
here, though. This is 199 right here.
Is that 199?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you were over on the other side.
Yeah, that's like way over here. So
Okay, so here, yeah, basically Oregon Mountain Road, that would be where my farm is, my property. So a lot of these out in here are, there's a couple of residential properties over by the agricultural checkpoint. Outside of that, most of them are uninhabited without dwellings on them. Basically, the only ones that I know of that have dwellings are right on the highway.
Okay. So there's some PO here, the yellow parts. Is that where you are? That right down here? Okay. And then up here, this is all Forest Service access. That's another conversation I've been told not to bring up is, yeah, in holdings that are on the Forest Service access. That's a whole nother can of worms. But there's some, you know, there's a large percentage of the private property that's suitable with accessed on Forest Service roads.
Yeah, I mean, from a utility grid standpoint, this area is actually very viable for development because it has the power grid lines right through it. They're all accessible from the highway.
That's amazing
Most
to
of the
me.
private properties off of here, driveways right off of 199, so there's no Forest Service road access requirements.
Yeah, this is the best zone here. Good. Okay, go down. Land use maps.
I just added these because
Cool.
they're kind of interesting and they show just generally the land use for the entire county. Well, actually specifically what the land use designations are for the county. So if you, anywhere where you see the yellow, that's residential. So you can tell that's, you know, where you're going to have potential conflicts. The brown is timberland. The green is ag. There's a little hatch pattern that is for our resource conservation area. So those are, you know, creeks, streams, lake, etc.
Okay, I see right here.
And actually along the Smith, if you look there on the east side of 101, the river has a different pattern. That's for, it's a riparian corridor. And so you'll see that inland, but it's essentially the same as the pattern that you see on the west side for the river as far as being restrictive.
Riparian corridor right here, okay. Yes, through South Bank. That's a pretty map, I like that. I want a copy of that.
It is a good one.
And then timberland, so it's, yeah, the land use designation being timberland. I'm not sure how you fit in commercial uses into that.
If there are other zoning maps that you would like to see, just let me know, and we
Okay.
can bring those back at a future meeting. Also, you know, there is a potential, if you have interest, where we may, through the GIS, be able to show the zoning on top of the parcels, assessor parcels. I know
Okay,
you mentioned that, I
right,
think, on the
yeah.
first one.
Yep, Haiichi. These are some, oops, some more of the handful of private inholdings that are up on low divides right before Rowdy Creek. This one's for sale for $80,000. but there's no water.
No, there's no water.
Let's see. This is, what is this? Oh, it's like the, no, it's like where South Fork comes out. This is? Okay. Oh, that's right. It's just a very large scale.
Yeah, and the little yellow at the bottom
Right.
is the Rock Creek.
Here's
or
the bridge, the South
subdivision.
Fork Bridge. Okay. And then, oops. Paradise Flat. No, that's Big Flat. This is Paradise.
That's Rock Creek
Okay.
in Boulder Creek. This particular map that you're on now, it's actually broken into 3 different geographic areas. The state line 199, Washington Flat, and Big Flat. So you might want to, in case you cruise through it too fast, you may miss
Okay.
some of that.
Got it. Trying to find the end of South Fork Road. Is that here? This looks like Big Flat, South Fork. So there's a bunch of green there.
Yeah, and that's what I was explaining. You'll see
Okay,
the green, and then that
agricultural.
other hatch pattern was a rural residential.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, we tried to find a land use designation that would most match the
Mhm.
development pattern of lots that had already been created, and I believe,
Mhm.
I don't have my glasses on, but I believe it's a 5-acre minimum.
So what is that area right now that we're looking at? Okay.
So climate-wise, this is ideal. There's water. This is a place where an ag zoning could potentially be properly sited away from a residential, although I don't know the parcel layout here really that well. But Bill Stevens' place is right out here somewhere.
So are these properties on Big Flat accessed through Forest Service roads?
I think you do jump on that for a little bit.
At some point, some of the part, obviously, getting there is all on a county road or county-maintained road.
But individual parcels may have to traverse.
Yeah, you're probably familiar with this.
Right here?
Your family owns some land near there.
Yeah, where that road ends.
Mm-hmm.
County Road. And that's where,
Where does the road end here?
see the little white.
Here,
Right there.
County Road.
The tip of the green.
That's where the county road ends and goes into Forest Service roads and comes on down to Little
Okay.
Creeks.
So it doesn't even look like from that, you can actually access any of those ag lands from County Road. You'd have to traverse through Forest Service Road.
No, it's county, and you go all the way through it and then you hit the
Oh,
Forest
oh.
Service. But when you look on the maps, like the road has like a dual marking. It's a
Okay.
county road and a Forest Service road. I don't know if that's true or not, but like when you hit this point right
I mean,
here on the
I could
Forest
get
Service
a
map.
clarification from our road superintendent as far
Okay.
as the extent of the road, what
Yeah.
we maintain. I mean, if there were operations beyond on the Forest Service, and I know you've explained this, would you just need a special use permit in order to?
From the Forest Service?
Yeah,
Well,
or anything beyond that?
okay, so like right here, what you're talking, there's a sign that the Forest Service has posted that says commercial permit required for commercial haul. And so if you are doing any kind of business on a Forest Service road, you have to apply for a commercial haul permit. I have the form from the Forest Service, but there's no box to check for cannabis. And there isn't going to be probably anytime soon. So I don't know the process. I don't know how Humboldt's dealing with that, because they have a lot of parcels, and maybe, was it Matt? Matt may know the answer to this question. So I don't know, honestly, like how that's dealt with. If it's something more generic, that you know, there's just like an ag box you check, or just a commerce box that you check, or just private, it's just business. I don't know how vague it is, so I don't know what people are indicating and what the response back is from the Forest Service. From what I heard, the Humboldt County is just sending like the same kind of neighborhood notifications that go out to private parcel holders when there's a use permit going on. And so the letter goes out to the Forest Service, and I don't know if they even know what to do with it, or they do, and I don't know what the answer is. They don't show up. Yeah. yeah, I'd love to learn about that one because we got a lot of good land.
Yeah, that's something hopefully they get figured out. I mean, I think it was a bigger discussion people were having about that before the commercialization. I haven't heard anything through the grapevine about anybody being, turned down or not given a commercial hauling permit through Forest Service roads, but I do know it's been discussions about,
Right.
What the potential impact that could have.
This is a cool parcel out here. Okay, this is back to the coast. Uh-oh.
Again, Fort Dick, we're looking at Fort Dick. I mean, we're dealing with some of the same climate issues that we would be dealing with in Smith River for flowering outdoor cultivation spaces.
And just clue me in, climate concerns would be that it's good or bad, or?
It's bad.
It's bad,
really-
too
it's
wet?
not It's too wet. and
Too moldy?
Too close to the ocean for full outdoor now. I mean, you can have it in greenhouses and stuff like that.
Sure, okay.
Release the solar.
Guess we'll stick to cows and grass.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you at the grocery store and named the Grass Ambassador. I thought that was pretty awesome.
I didn't do that, but that's me. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal that title from you guys.
No, it's all you. It's all you.
I have your endorsements, I'm good.
They don't want it.
For sure. We
All right.
support you.
Looks like we just landed in town here at the airport.
Cool. Yeah, so there's timberland in town, too.
Residential again, I guess, huh?
You're talking about this brown down here?
Oh, no,
Bobby's
No.
talking about this. Oh, orange.
Oh, that is an urban residential. So that the orange, that you're gonna find that with multifamily, and for zoning, that is half acre or less in size.
And the brown's the timberland still on this one.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that RCA.
Yeah, lots of
Resource-
RCA. That's all in the
And
coastal
then-
zone
this
also.
thing.
That's the little tree-looking stuff, and then the green ag stuff.
There's the
Then you get it
key.
closer into residentials.
On this map here, toward the top here, is that going out Pipe Pond?
Where you see this, if you go, it has a little circle in it that says 3-1 in it, which is a
Yeah.
rural neighborhood. That's By Pond.
Got
Yeah,
it.
you're right on it.
Because that was some people complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that,
Residential zone.
exactly. And
all
I mean,
this-
from what I understand, they may be growing under the collective model, and I think we've discussed that
Yeah.
pretty thoroughly, that will end at the end of the year, and then, as long as we keep, prevent it from going into residential zones, we can avoid those conflicts.
Right. And then same thing with its timberland that's intermixed, there'll just need to be some kind of metric for setbacks created.
Yeah, and that probably has a CT, coastal timber zone district.
Okay.
And I don't see that being a zone district that we would likely recommend
Sure.
for
Okay.
being an allowable
So
use.
just the fact that it's timberland, it doesn't, okay, because it's also
Yeah,
got the coastal.
Yeah, what you're
component.
gonna find down further here in the Elk Creek, if the land is not, where you see the brown, if it's not zone TPC, it's zone
Oh.
CT coastal timber.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, well, we're not super concerned with that area. And then
One more map.
Klamath also is sort of a
Klamath.
off limits for now, it seems like.
Now, yeah, we can breeze
This
right
is
through
great for seeing all the manufacturing and industrial and.
The manufacturing really pops with that, the bright
it's
purple.
Great. And how it's next to the residential.
What's the real dark green versus
The
is that
darker
new color?
green would be probably agriculture
20.
20 acre minimum,
Right
yeah.
here.
Got it, okay.
And lighter's 5.
And then sort of
Ag
a olive
prime is
colored
dark,
green,
dark.
those are your prime ag. No,
Yeah.
excuse me, the dark green, the darkest green is the prime ag.
Prime
Yeah.
ag, yeah.
Yeah, and the olive is the 20.
And that was, Humboldt went back and forth. First, they required cannabis permits to be on ag prime. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And then they went back the other
Right,
way and they're
right.
keeping it off of the ag prime.
Right,
Which makes sense because you don't want to displace
yeah.
affordable ag prime for food
Right.
production or whatever.
Right.
you know. Yeah, right.
Okay. Now, so that's the end of our maps. That's 20. I don't remember seeing Fort Dick area.
Yeah, we were looking for just
Can we go back?
2 or 3 months up.
Okay, I'm gonna wheel it. It's a little slow. Oh. It's on top of this one, right? No? Wait, does this go far enough?
No, it doesn't.
No, I
Okay.
think, let's go up,
This is,
yeah, I believe it's on this map.
okay.
Yeah.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
No, it doesn't go far enough.
Okay,
Doesn't
then
quite
let's go to
hit
the
it.
Smith River. The Smith River one may
Have it?
go down.
Big fly.
It is on one of the maps, I can tell you that.
Let me slide over this way so we can see. Oh, didn't go very far. No. It's inland. Here? Could zoom in a little.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I did see it.
Where's your place,
Okay.
Blake?
Yeah, all around here
Cool.
and over here. And down over here.
Is that the dark
And
green
right
prime
here.
egg, or is that the 20 egg? Cool.
Yeah, so I was just trying to get a feel for this. Okay. So the light green is ag 20 or 10, 5 or something.
5. And the medium green's 20.
Ag 5, there we are. Okay. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, and really just, I was looking for Moorhead Road to see what all that was zoned. Now I have a pretty good feel for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Humboldt starts at 5 acres, about parcel size.
Okay.
They were started at 6, and then, but everybody with 5 acre parcels complained, so they went to 5.
So 5 is their minimum size.
That's their minimum size for applying for anything, and I think in most situations, they're only approving the small scale cultivations for parcels that size. They have it's tiered out. The bigger your parcel, the bigger the permits they'll give. They're a scale way beyond what I'd like to see here, of course, but
Are we all in agreement that the 10,000 square foot total is as large as we want to go?
yeah,
Right.
I wouldn't have a problem with even having it be smaller for the first round, but if
And when you
if
say the
10's
first
gonna-
round, the first
the
few
first
years?
incarnation of our
Yeah.
ordinances, our first try, you know, but if 10 seems more reasonable, you know, a lot of people think you can't even be in business without being
Right.
10,000 square feet, so I don't want to judge that, you know, so, but, yeah, small, start small. I think it's easier.
10,000 square foot is the lower medium tier of the state issues.
Mhm.
They'll go up to 25,000 square feet.
So that's the state's lowest, but that's what we want to be our highest.
That's what we're
Yeah.
considering being our highest, and that would probably extend into the future.
Sure.
Right.
Most of our lot sizes and general layout of the land doesn't really
Sure.
lend itself to expansion
Yeah.
beyond that size.
There may only be 5 parcels in the whole county that could even be suitable to like an acre grow that have the access and the
And
water.
the slopage, and
Sure.
a lot of our PO and TPZs are on sloped hillsides,
Yeah.
there's percentage slope.
Sure.
The state's not issuing above a 30-degree slope.
Big farms are hard to have off the
environmental
grid also.
Reports for erosion control.
Sure. And it just seems simpler for the county to permit and regulate in the beginning, smaller operations that include less people and less impact.
So
I don't know.
if you did 10,000 as your largest, what would be your medium and your small,
2,500 square feet's the first tier.
the smallest?
and
They
I
do
think
have
it's a
specialty
5,000.
Cottage license, which is.
There's a 25 plant tier also, that's 25 plants on non-contiguous plots. But that's a funny one because they don't define the space on it, so you could get much larger than 2,500 square feet with 25 plants on
You do
non-contiguous plots.
5,000 square foot with 50 plants.
Yeah, they have that one too, yeah, so.
So just to bring up a point here, so I kind of heard that 10,000 is possibly, it's a good number, but it possibly larger than it needs to be. And so what would an alternative to that be? Is 5 going way too
5.
small?
5. I mean, if it becomes a thing and we can apply for cultivation permits, I would apply for the smallest one, because that's what I could afford, because you pay on the square footage of your
I see.
permit.
Okay.
And
And I would be on the opposite end of that.
Yeah.
saying that for my property, basically it would be just because my property
Mhm.
size would be
Right.
conducive to
Sure.
achieving the largest scale that we
Yeah, my place wouldn't accommodate much larger than the smallest tier, and I don't want to involve employees. I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
This may be an opportunity to seek any public comment if
Yeah,
anyone wants to weigh in on
I was
it.
just about to go there. I'm kind of looking for some nodding. If y'all want to weigh in, now's the time.
It's so
You'll have
quiet
to-
here today.
Take turns and wait in line. Whoops, I
Uh-oh.
need a mic.
We didn't advertise the meeting very well this time.
It's over here.
Sorry, thank you.
All right, very good. Aaron Skrobeck. How do most of the farms get water now? I know water's been a concern. Do they have delivery trucks up in any of the areas up here? I was just
Yeah.
kind of curious about that.
It's
as
not
to how-
allowed anymore, though. Deliveries aren't going to be allowed for permitted cultivation.
Okay.
I don't think. I think they're trying to get rid of that.
And you have to get your water from source.
Yeah, but people do that. But there isn't much. My neighbor got some deliveries in the past, and they had to get somebody to come up from Eureka, which I thought was crazy.
Oh, wow. It's quite a trip.
Yeah.
Okay, I was curious about
Yeah,
that.
but
Thank
it's,
you.
there are surface water extractions, some are legal and some are not. There's wells, there's a lot of good producing wells. So those are where people get water. Rainwater collection, I have a neighbor
So
who
they,
does a
so
lot
they
of
do have rainwater collection sites, since we do get a lot of water up here,
Yeah.
and just store it for later use then.
Sure.
Okay. that-
Last year we got 151 inches.
Right, yeah.
Before last.
Not so much this last year.
No,
Year
78
before, yeah, we
this
got.
year, yeah.
All right, awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we're kind of on this square footage zone,
Yeah.
right? I hear what you're saying. I hear what
Parcel
you're saying.
size too. We want to just start with that as an easy way to,
So-
a good starting point.
So there would be a minimum parcel
Minimum
size
parcel
of
size, I
5
think.
acres or 10 acres
Something
or
like that.
something.
Yeah. There's a lot of 5-acre parcels. 10 might be more reasonable for setback. It kind of depends on the area, I suppose. There are a lot of 5-acre parcels that could be suitable, so. But
We
10
do-
acres would make it easier to have less impact,
Can we do 5,000 on 5, 10,000 on 10?
something like that. Sure.
I would think, as far as the market, I think, we should plan a little bit into the future for the survival of the farmer, and you see Brookings right now, and they're retailing, pretty decent cannabis for, I think retailed about with $700 a pound, and so at that rate, I think it would be pretty hard for a, that's the retail, and taxes included. So I think at that rate, it might get hard for a farmer, and we might end up with, we've got about 86, 87, we've got a small footprint of production on our licensed market right now, but I could see it just snowballing quick, for our, because we were already ahead of that, on the.
Snowballing in which way?
Yeah, which direction?
I'm sorry?
Snowballing in which direction?
Snowballing as far as just this real competitive marketplace with prices falling, and to the point where, I would think maybe I'm not a farmer, so I'm just coming at it, looking at it from,
Sure. Well, really high-end tomatoes sell for a few bucks a pound, and people still grow them. I grow hops. Commercially, they're worth about $5 a pound. Real specialty, when I hand deliver fresh hops, they're worth maybe $40 a pound. So I'm not worried about low prices. You just got to work harder and be smarter.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I am concerned with the pricing and the capability of, producing enough cannabis to make it so you make money. I mean, we're not all doing this to break even or to lose money. You wouldn't grow tomatoes to just break even. Right. You wouldn't grow hops just to break even. So I do see what Robert's saying, because the maturity of the other markets in the other states are showing that, minimal production isn't necessarily, it's not going to get you into the next season. Right. And so that's kind of where, in our previous discussions about sizing of the square foot canopy size, limiting, I think, is, while we want to limit the sizing, we can't limit it to a point where our cultivators can't be successful, because then they'll fold under. Sure. If and truly, we will be looking at wholesale prices at the $200 to $300 a pound rate. Sure. And I don't know anyone that I know of in the cultivating aspect that can produce at a 2,500 square foot garden or a 5,000 square foot garden, enough cannabis in that to be profitable at those margins.
Sure.
Those margins just aren't conducive.
I think probably at any size, if you're going off of current business models, I don't think there's any size kind of in the mountain regions that's ever going to be competitive in the way you're talking about. I think those days are done. I think it's over.
Well, yeah, no, totally. I mean, we're done with the large-scale black market prices. But the point is, if you say, okay, you're going to grow tomatoes, but you can only grow 400 pounds of tomatoes, right? Or you can only grow tomatoes at 1,200 square feet of tomatoes. Sure. You're not going to make any money. Even if you do grow the greatest specialty tomatoes, your price over a year, your revenue will not dictate that you will be in business for very long, and you'll be eating a lot of specialty tomatoes. It's economics. I mean, it's numbers, and numbers don't lie. And that's where I'm trying to get to with the 10,000 square foot is probably the minimum size that a large scale person would want to go to. Mm-hmm. And I mean, large scale is all indicative of where you're at. I mean, in Humboldt, a large scale is an acre or whatever their size is. But here, we're talking about 10,000 square foot being our largest grow size. And, if you look at the yield numbers, your gram per square foot yields, which we all know if you're a cannabis cultivator, you're stuck with a certain amount of grams per square foot that you're going to cultivate no matter what. Mm-hmm. Tomatoes, you can harvest tomatoes, 100 tomatoes off of one plant. But your one cannabis plant is only going to give you so many grams per square foot maximum. It's just they're limited, and so that's where we have to kind of reconcile what we believe to be, our own personal opinion on economics, sure, but then blend that into what the real dynamics of the businesses are. Yeah, and the taxes alone are what are really the hindrance to the businesses being capable of pulling a margin that makes it worth doing the business.
I just think that everybody's business model is so different that it's difficult for the county to take that into account too much. I mean, I have a neighbor who makes a living selling tomatoes in a pretty small greenhouse. So it's, and there's different ways to produce. You're not always limited by the square foot. And we're not necessarily just talking about producing pounds as your metric for making a living.
Right. But what I don't want to do is get into a debate within our group about what we believe one other person's business model should be. Because that's not where we should be. Right. We should be at how do we make it so that we hear the concerns of the community, of our group, put a limit to that so that we don't have huge expansive growth, but then also make it conducive for the business owner who is going to try to do this to be competitive, because cannabis is not tomatoes, and we cannot, we can't compare, really, there is no agricultural product on the market right now that we could compare cannabis to give us a good, clear indication of what will be successful. And that's, so, I mean, I don't mind personally limiting the square foot cultivation size right off the bat. But I do believe that we could be setting ourselves up for, a handful of our small cottage producers to fail, given the market restrictions that
I'd like to see it as less restrictive as possible, honestly, like as big as you could go without having a problem for the county.
Right.
So, I get the direction you're coming.
Yeah, totally.
So let me attempt to summarize here, right? You know, we're all here for different reasons, and I'm here to limit, and you're here to expand it, and we're trying to meet in the middle or something. And so, you know, I've got two advisors here. One on, you know, you're Eric's saying 10,000. You were originally at 5,000, JD, if you're still there. And you know, that's a big difference, right? Just between those two numbers, right? And so I'm just wondering, in the context of our purpose here, you know, I want to vote smaller, but I also want to be reasonable, and I think that I understand that 10,000 is already coming in under a lot of other, you know, much larger numbers. So I've just thrown that out for some context, and if anyone else wants to weigh in, we don't necessarily need to settle this right now, but it would be nice if we could.
Should we, since Matt just showed back up, should we get to the questions?
Forest Service road
Yeah, the Forest Service roads and Humboldt. How's Humboldt dealing with the accessing of the cultivation spaces that are accessed through Forest Service right now?
Yeah, I don't know if that's been addressed, because you're talking about going across federal land, right, and then doing that, yeah.
You need a commercial hauling permit.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I don't think that's necessarily settled, or if it's
Addressed.
even addressed. Yeah, necessarily. It's like, I think when it comes to the federal land crossing, I think it's still just kind of a no-go right now.
Do you know of any existing Humboldt commercialized licensed operations that have that are on Forest Service roads in Humboldt?
Not that I know of, and I would imagine that that's something that hasn't been necessarily settled right now, although, and we've had concerns definitely in Central Territory where there are situations where that directly occurs, you know, or it could be an occurrence of people that want to buy, and then there's Forest Service roads in between, and so, I don't know who's handled that.
I think they are, at least in the application process, they're accepting applications from people who access on Forest Service roads. I know some people who are in the permit process. I
Yeah.
don't know where they are with it. But.
I think so too.
Okay, so back to the size right now as our maximum size, either 5 or 10,000 or a number in between. Does anyone
Very
want
dependent
to
on
weigh
the
on?
site, you know, like Eric's place is suitable, my place
Yeah.
is not. You know, if somebody who wanted to force in 10,000
Yeah.
square feet where I am would be pushing it, you know. At your place, it doesn't make sense to go smaller than that.
I mean, so is this something that could be on a case by, again, I mean, I wish Joel were here.
Well-
Because, you know, on a case by case basis, do we just?
Or we just put, you know, like Robert had suggested, a minimum acreage that goes with it. And so 10,000 square foot could be on a 20-acre parcel or something. I just increase that, but some version of
I'm all
that.
for anything. I mean, I'm very open to the group.
Okay.
I just, and my concern would be limiting the square footage would limit capabilities of revenue generation. So that's where I'm coming from with it.
Access
if our group and our
determines it.
community feel that 5,000 square foot is where this community wants to be, no matter what the size of the property is,
right.
I'm all for those
So-
sensitivity.
And let me just say this, just to get our heads straight on this. You know, I want to limit it to keep out the big players that are really going to be,
And they won't be here for 10,000.
yeah, not beneficial to our community in any way, right? And if we can set this thing up where it's a bit of an artisanal niche marketing, you know, whatever, gourmet cannabis, then that's the direction I would like to see us
Sure.
head this in. And, you know, that's, so with that in mind, you know, there's a benefit to you as a grower who would be at the biggest legal size in our neighborhood, you know, to help keep competition down, right? So just throwing that out there, so.
Well, a lot of it has to do with what zoning's available, and if you do, like Robert said, so much size on so many acres, it's gonna definitely tell you a number that could happen in this county.
It's a good starting point, because then we could get an idea of what the cultivation value would be here.
In the remote areas, access is a big issue. Road capacity, unpaved roads. It might be good to have the engineering folks from community development talk a little bit about that. The requirements, you know, when you create dust, you create nuisances. You know, the dirt and gravel roads that aren't up to full standards aren't good for commercial traffic. And it can cost a lot of county money to get there.
Definitely, that's something that Humboldt County has addressed too, and is doing setbacks of distances on roads like that away from a main kind of transportable commercial road, and something that I think has been an issue for a while in terms of everybody off in the hills, increased traffic, not managing the roads, runoff, dust, and so I think they've gone with that, and I don't know if it's the best way, but by doing a certain distance from a commercial road too is allowed, but beyond that, it's not.
Right. They started off with 1 mile from a paved road or something like that originally, and that X's out 90% of it. I think they made some changes.
Are we sure that that's something we need to weigh in on, because the rules alone are gonna?
Well, not for roads. I spoke with someone from the engineering department, and roads are a big concern. Capacity of roads, especially unpaved roads, and there'll be a big concern when the permit goes through the departments whether or not they want to approve it, I think.
Especially if you're bringing the Smith into mind in terms of preservation of that amazing river. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the water board seems to be most concerned about with discharge, is your roads and the sediment you create on your roads, and its their proximity to watersheds.
Okay. So let's see if we can wrap up a couple of these concepts in terms of size and scale. If we went 10,000, allowed up to 10,000 on, say, a 20-acre minimum, that's not necessarily, is it a parcel or is it a ranch size? Couple parcels together.
There was a question about that, like when you have adjacent parcels and such, it depends, like for example, CAL FIRE, when you're applying for like a conversion permit or an exemption, they don't see property lines. They just include all your parcels as one thing.
Correct.
But from other perspectives, the county, it's measured differently. So.
Yeah, from a zoning standpoint, it's parcel size that dictates. It's not.
Yeah.
Based off the ATN number of that specific parcel.
Yeah.
And I say if you had contiguous parcels next to each other, you could meet that minimum size, right? Like if you had.
I don't know. That's what I'm asked. That's why I asked the question.
Sure.
I mean, because they're separate parcels, they could be divided up at any one point and sold into separate private ownership, which would then, how does that roll with, say, somebody who, as we're seeing in Humboldt right now, we see a lot of farms up for sale.
Yeah.
Getting a permit and then selling a farm.
Sure.
If we license, say, one person goes, they've got 3 contiguous parcels that equal 22 acres, so they can get a 10,000 square foot permit. But each one of them are only, whatever size they are, they're under the 10.
Right.
Say they want to sell it right after they get their permit. How do we, how does it, or is the county even, is it even in the permit?
Wait, are you saying they have 3 contiguous parcels
Yeah,
that
they're 7 or 8
together
acres.
meet our?
Yeah, that meet like the 22, that
Well,
makes it
since-
22 acre total.
I mean, we are going to have that use permit that
Yeah.
we're going to hold, so.
So I guess it's not.
Yeah, it would go away
And
if the
it-
parcel sold and you couldn't meet the size anymore. You couldn't get your permit again.
So what I was bringing up, Heidi, was is this a parcel size or an ownership size? It's not a combination of 3 parcels that would meet the 20 acre
Yeah, I mean,
minimum.
typically the way that we work in the planning is it's based on the parcel size.
Right.
We don't look,
I just wanted to clarify.
yeah.
So, okay.
So I mean,
It is
yeah, I
parcel
mean,
size
if
then.
one permit would be permitted for one 10-acre parcel, 10 or greater parcel, or 20 or whatever.
Okay.
So
that doesn't work for a lot of
another
places.
question
That doesn't
I've
work for a
got.
lot of properties.
Yeah.
My place, for example, like when I did my timber conversion deal, it goes across property lines, and the whole development project for everything that I do goes across property lines.
You could merge your parcels.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So this brings up a little discussion idea that I'm thinking about. Is there, okay, because the state is allowing for multiple ownership of separate licenses, what we've seen, what we've discussed prior is that we've got large conglomerative corporations that are purchasing 1 acre grow sites, and they're operating 50 1-acre parcels, or 1 acre grows on whatever the size parcels that they've got. Is there any way for us to, to limit that capability for someone to step in here and say, okay, I'm gonna buy this 10-acre property and do 5,000 here. I'm gonna buy this 20-acre property and do 10,000 here, and then, and have all these different grows. Is that something we want to worry about? Is that something that, we feel the need to think about, or do we just let the market structures play out?
So I'm trying to understand your question, and so you're talking about, let's say, one individual or one entity or one group having multiple permits.
And monopolizing most of the cultivation
Right.
capability of the county.
That's what's going on in a lot of places.
It's going on in a lot of
Yeah,
places.
which I understand we got to be careful of, right?
Yes, exactly. So is there any, and I guess if Joel were here, it would be a good question for Joel, is there any...
How do we limit?
Exactly. Any mechanism we can do to to limit monopolization and prevent as much consolidation as we can? Because it's something that's going to happen in cannabis.
People get around that by putting things in other people's names.
Right,
For sure.
for a while.
For a while.
Yeah, for a while.
Heidi, have you got that question that you can ask him? You got
Yeah.
clarity on that?
Yeah, there's a farmers conglomerate in Santa Barbara right now that has 135 licenses under one corporation. They can cultivate up to 1 million square feet across 3 different counties. They have them all
clustered
in one spot.
one location.
There is nothing stopping them from doing that. They're being sued, I believe they're being sued by
Calgrowers
the
is
California
suing
Growers
CDFA
Association
over
because of it. Thank you for bringing that up, because I was over here going, multiple permit. Yeah. And I don't know if there's anything that we can do as far as, the use permit saying that one person or one entity or multiple corporations can't own more than one permit, because you can put all the square footage limitations as you want, but if they start stacking them next to each other, it all goes out the window.
Exactly.
And that's why we're seeing the $300 a pound price, is because we've got people that are just mass producing this stuff, and it's all pre-sold already.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay.
Crazy.
Thank
So
you.
I wonder from a county's perspective, is it even legal for us to enter in language into an ordinance that limits, say, corporation to, say, one license? And now I know that doesn't fix the problem of, say, a corporation renaming itself or doing business as another one or forming another LLC and purchasing that.
Makes it harder then.
It makes it harder, and they got to spend more money, and how much more likely are they to do that?
So somewhere along the line, we could just put a note here that says that we, clustering or grouping or co-oping is not encouraged or not allowed.
Collaborative model, I think, the farm co-op, like you're familiar with
Yeah.
ag stuff, I would hate to see that go away, because those
Right.
are groups of individual farmers who are
Right.
working together.
There's a model for that, a true agricultural cooperative model now.
Yeah, so specific to growing, right?
Yeah, specific
Under,
to
under,
taking licenses,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
Which
You
is
could have
happening.
different license types, you could maybe hold 2 licenses in different categories, like if you had a nursery license and a cultivation license, or if you had different types of cultivation licenses, perhaps. Maybe somebody has an indoor cultivation license and an outdoor cultivation license, or an outdoor and a mixed light, or something like that. But stacking multiples of the same license sort of defeats the purpose, and that's what the lawsuit is about against CDFA. It was a pretty blatant loophole that they took advantage of. At the, most likely the pressure, they admitted, they said, due to input from significant stakeholders, and they didn't say who they were, but it was the investors who wanted to do the stacking.
And I mean, again, I don't know how concerned we should be here in Delmar County with our limited size and whatnot, but it was just something to throw out.
Yeah,
there.
but if there's only 20 places, that'd be
Yeah.
lame if somebody gobbled them all up.
yeah,
They'd have to buy it from a bunch of us, so.
okay.
Mine's
So-
not for sale.
My note here says that we're looking for a way to limit the number of
Licenses and
licensings under one outfit, entity, ownership.
something to discuss.
Or perhaps even staging it out, so we could see like a small farmer maybe growing over the course of a few years, but allowing, a growth in a pattern that, wouldn't entice a large, entity to just go to, balls to the wall.
So we're not against, say, one grower having 2 licenses of different types. Are we against them having 3 or 5 or 30? How do we?
You could have a few in different, we'd have to go over what makes sense. I mean, it could, like in the micro business model, you have 3 licenses. Well, it's one license,
one
but it's
license.
like having 3.
Yeah.
So
So I
where
think that's
it's
what
appropriate,
You could do it as a percentage of the total because you don't know how many like licenses are going to be granted. So if you had it's like
Okay.
no one over 5% of the licenses
There
or
you
something
go.
like that, then it could play with the number of
Right.
licenses that are out there.
Sure. Probably just limiting, so you're not getting multiples of the exact same license type. I think that's sort of the point. But, I don't know. I guess you could get a small and a medium at cultivation, and then that's like stacking.
Okay.
I don't know, details there. I'd also like to see a way to, where you have contiguous parcel ownership under one ownership to be able to meet lot size requirements without having to merge parcels, because these are short-term permits that could possibly turn into unviable business operations. So if you're going to ask somebody to merge parcels to do something that isn't even going to work the next year, yeah, that's kind of extreme, you know. So I don't know. That might be a consideration. I think there's other things that work like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that would definitely need to be addressed as part of the ordinance. I mean, I think the fact that we do have the use permit, you know,
Okay.
I mean, that's something I think we could look at.
Okay.
I just wanted to get on the table. I've got an appointment in town here in about 20 minutes. So
Okay.
I'm going to need to leave early.
Sure.
So it's
Well,
Just
we can wrap it up then.
giving you a heads up to take some notes to finish up with.
Okay.
So basically, I'm saying we start late and finish early.
Perfect. Sounds good.
For different reasons.
Yeah, yeah,
Different people.
different reasons. Okay, so
I got family visiting here, so.
so let's help me summarize setbacks. We really didn't touch on that.
Yeah,
Or
that's
did
gonna
we?
be a case-by-case thing, like.
Yeah, and it's the church tree concept, right? You got that community
Yes.
coming in with
Yes.
concerns.
I think it's setbacks from residential zones is gonna be kind of like setback from adjacent timberland may be a different consideration than setback from adjacent residential zones.
Right.
Well, and like our wording, no closer to the property line than it is to your house or something like
Yeah.
that, because that one at Church Street.
It's not always houses on these commercial farms that we're talking about, though, unless we're gonna do like the Humboldt artisanal brand where you require the licensed cultivator to live on the property also, which is definitely an option. But in terms of property lines and stuff, you know, if you had a big setback just automatically from property lines, you're gonna wipe out the entire parcel. And topographically, there may only be one little place, maybe a 1 acre area on a 20 acre parcel that's even suitable. And it may be, 50 feet from a property line, but if that's adjacent to timberland, undeveloped timberland, then that may be okay compared to adjacent to something else, so like somebody's house.
Perhaps, I mean, with the TP and the PO, they both have zone, or setbacks that are already assigned to them.
Right.
And then back to what you
Yeah,
said,
they're
on a
pretty
case-by-case basis
yeah.
through the use permit, we could go for potentially more dependent upon
Right.
if there are, nearby land uses that might require greater, setbacks.
Right.
I mean, if we're looking at the zone districts that we talked about today, I don't know how many conflicts we're going to actually come across.
Right.
These are resource lands. The intent of resource land is not for residential development. The primary intent is for the
Right.
resources, so we also
Okay.
need to keep that in the back of our minds.
Here's a hypothetical question that you may or may not want to answer. There's a lot of unpermitted structures, nice houses where there's never been a permit pulled for anything. They, don't even have addresses, some of them. Is somebody but they've lived there for 20 years, or they got an address 15 years ago when they were just kind of issued them over the counter without checking to see if they were even on the road that they're addressed at. So what would happen in that case where somebody says, I got a residence, this is a residential zone, this is right next to pot farm.
Well, their zone district is what they're zoned.
Okay.
And there are typically no residential zones up there. So that's a complicated question, whether or not these people are afforded any rights when they are living in homes that may not be permitted.
Right.
I mean,
It's a
I have
legal
my
question.
personal feeling about that.
Right.
That might be a question for Joel.
Okay.
Or to discuss with other people in my own department, but, when you don't comply with the regulations, it's hard to, expect.
Certainly, I get what you're saying. Thanks.
Okay. So I was just taking some notes for structure for next time on our, I'm going back to the agenda here, and we're on item 2, cultivation. And I think that we'll just stick with this outline that we drew out today, which is the 4 steps: the outdoor, the mixed light, the indoor, and the nursery. And then under the outdoor, we're currently on setback, ag zone, and size and scale. And I think that'll be our agenda for next time. Generally, that would be very useful, and then we'll just keep working through all those. So again, I'm reminding everyone now that we're still on outdoor, setback, ag zone, and size and scale. So that's kind of are we ready to reach consensus on any of that yet, or do we want to keep it all open until the next meeting?
We're missing a couple people, so maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe just
okay.
Wait for consensus until we got everybody here.
All right. Okay. And our next meeting is 2 weeks away. Is that?
Yeah. What about on the manufacturing, the item 1 there?
Sure.
We didn't make a formal consensus because there was Eric was gone, and you were gone, Blake. And
what's missing?
I don't think there's anything missing. We just didn't want to say yes, we're done talking about it when there was people missing. I think Joel felt like he was pretty comfortable with it. So
from our prior meeting,
yeah, from our prior meeting. So if we as a Kurt's not here, but if we have I think he was here at the last meeting now and on board with everything. So we'll look at what Joel comes back with. Yes. Yeah. Use permit, individual cases, and so Joel will come back with something that we can get
yes.
a flavor for with details, and then we can say yes or no after that point. I think we'll see it again before it goes to planning commission.
I just wrote the 24th.
Is that
oh, 20th, yes, 25th.
Okay. And then we'll just kind of break down this cultivation discussion into these sections for the agenda. Yeah. And we'll just have that only, just the different sections of cultivation for the agenda. That's all right.
Okay. Looking ahead 2 weeks after that is the 8th. I just scheduled a meeting in the Bay Area, so I have the year.
Something else I'd like to maybe add on to this list is maybe duplication of environmental protections because of the concern that there won't be state resources for state agencies to accomplish enforcement of the water protection. And so there was some talk of having, because we wanted to find out what are the state things that we don't need to duplicate, so we're not redoing things. But that may be one that we want to have on our own books in the event that the state falls short on enforcement.
In relation to where you draw your water from?
Water, like all the water board stuff, basically, and fish and wildlife stuff maybe would be duplicated in county code. I don't know.
Just basically stating that they need to have their water board certificate. They have to have, the California.
Puts it on the county to have some enforcement of that, I guess. I
mean, we would include all of those types of permits as part of conditions of the use permit, that they show us verification. But are you actually saying where we would enforce their permit requirements?
Yeah, maybe. There was some discussion of it only because I haven't formulated an idea of how
because no one else will.
Yeah, I was concerned that, okay, great, the water board has all these really beautifully strict regulations, but they already don't have the resources to enforce it where it's big. They're not going to send anybody here.
Well, and that's something we would have to look at, because not only would we have to have people, we'd also have to have people that have the expertise to do that. So yeah, it's a good point to
So let's talk
now.
about that. Yeah, let's get that in there and see whether or not it's something that's viable for the county to get into.
Yeah, I think typically the way that all works now is water quality doesn't get involved until there's a complaint that then has to go through a little criteria to hit their radar, and then maybe they'd come see it. And so what you're proposing is that we have something internally here in Delaware County that would be a quicker, shorter, more efficient watching mechanism.
There's licensed third-party certifiers for stuff like this. course, anybody can be paid off and be corrupt, but that's one tool that you could have, requiring a third-party certification of some time from somebody who's reputable. Yes, make them pay for it. County doesn't have requirements. It has to be somebody who's on a list that's considered, you know, reputable and such.
So what you're saying is the landowner would hire that person, the person from a list that had been vetted through the county of people we all agree are on the up and up, and then they would come and certify your site and then provide that verification to the county.
You could do that through, in conjunction with forestry consultant company also, add some legitimacy to it, because they have licenses they want to upkeep and they don't want to be breaking the rules. So you could do that. And I've had forestry consultants come out and they're real up to date with everything that's going on around here. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do know there's professional groups out of Humboldt County that are now doing that kind of stuff.
Probably see them sprouting up all over the place, because like you said, I mean, I don't think the state water board's going to be capable.
It's a big business. It's a big business in Humboldt, advising.
Exactly. Sure. It could be another even source of economic revenue that gets passed off and spread around too, you know.
Okay, I guess I'm going to go take the water quality.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, so it's a
So
big corporations
if we
come and dominate.
limit you on permits, then you've got another source of income.
I probably couldn't do that and also actually have a commercial license. Probably be some sort of.
Well, you're getting that permit.
Should be a foul called there somewhere.
Yeah. When you're getting that permit, also get that water truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, super. Should we just wrap this up? You done?
Any more comment out there? Public. Thank you for coming, guys. Yeah, I'm good. We're good?
Yeah, let's leave early.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and let's make an honest effort to get here like 10 minutes early next time.
Okay.
Dude.
Caltrans not to hold us up on 199 for
All right.
an hour.
Hey, I've been here for more time than you have.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know now. I won't be here for that meeting next 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Okay, thanks, Bob. All right, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Matt.